science is on the brink of changing your life. Right now, men and women around the world are making amazing breakthroughs.
This is incredible.
Our team of leading scientists have chosen the discoveries they think matter most.
Whoa. An almost limitless supply of clean energy.
It's these which are the basis of one of the most important of all conservation enterprises.
From the car you'll drive to medical advances that could save your life.
This miracle means that we can replace surgery.
On a journey that spans the jungles of Africa.
And I'm here to join the hunt, to find one of the biggest threats to human survival.
To the quads of Oxford.
This is arguably the most complicated thing in the universe.
We will show you how science is a force for good. Prepare to see your future.
This is the beginning of that brave new world.
Tonight, life. We have chosen the breakthroughs in biology that we think will shape the future. Discoveries that could cure disease, deliver an endless supply of fuel, and unlock the secrets of a longer and healthier life. It's science we think really matters.
My name is Mark Evans. I'm in Panama on the southernmost tip of Central America. I'm heading to an isolated Pacific island where scientists are hunting for a life form that could help defeat one of humanity's biggest killers. I trained as a vet, and I reckon we've got a lot to learn from other life forms that share this planet. Many of them have been around a lot longer than we have, and discovering the secrets of their survival could well be critical to ours. This is the island of Coiba. There used to be a penal colony here, so it's remained largely uninhabited. A pristine wilderness which has survived almost intact. It's a rich hunting ground for plants and microorganisms which are known to have medicinal properties. This tree is called cedron in Spanish, and it's used extensively by the Panamanians. They boil up the seeds inside the fruit into a tea, which they then use to treat a whole host of ailments, from liver disease to malaria to snakebite. It's also a pretty good insect repellent. It has taken us hundreds of years to uncover some of the secrets of the terrestrial environment. But now science is taking a much harder look at another part of the planet, the ocean. It's home to the broadest biodiversity of life on Earth, and it's opening up new frontiers in our hunt for cures for the diseases that kill us. Dr. Kevin Tidgwell is a research scientist with the ICBG, an international forum dedicated to investigating our oceans. Today he's on the hunt for an underwater algae-like substance called cyanobacteria.
You can see it with your naked eye, and it looks, sometimes it'll be about the size of your finger.
Well, that big?
Yeah, that big, and sometimes even longer.
Are they free floating about in currents, or are they attached to stuff?
No, they either grow on the reef or on the rock or on the sand, sometimes on thalassia and seagrass, sometimes directly on sponges.
Kevin is obsessed with cyanobacteria because it's known to have special biological properties. Is it always kind of slightly unexpected what you'll find?
We never really know until we dive what's going to be there, because the cyanobacteria bloom and they die away, and so conditions change so rapidly that we can never be 100% certain that we'll find specific types of cyanobacteria.
There's a much higher level of biological activity underwater than on land. For every litre of seawater, there are 20,000 types of bacteria. Microorganisms down here are fighting for habitat space, and they use toxic chemicals to battle it out. It's these toxins that scientists hope will be equally aggressive against human diseases. Good dive?
Oh, it was an amazing dive.
Yeah?
Yeah, we got to see a whole lot of stuff, but best of all, we got a whole bunch of cyanobacteria.
And this is it. It looks like a lot of just kind of scrappy old weed.
It kind of does. So cyanobacteria tends to look a little bit like hair, and it feels a little slimy even. So it's sure to reach your hand in and grab some.
Oh my God. There's nothing to it.
No.
It's just stringy. It's like marine snot.
Exactly. It's a little slimy, a little gross.
It's the properties in this marine snot that Kevin and his colleagues are studying.
The cyanobacteria have kind of turned into small chemical factories, and they're just producing the most potent and toxic things that they can.
This really is scientific research at its most intrepid, the scientist as hunter-gatherer. But finding the samples is only part of the story. To discover just how useful the toxins in the cyanobacteria might be, they need to be tested back in a laboratory.
This is the cyanobacteria that we collected yesterday in Koiba, but preserved in a mixture of ethanol and seawater to make sure it didn't rot.
So this is step one now.
Yes, we're going to filter off all the seawater and ethanol so that then we can extract all the chemicals inside the cyanobacteria with a different solvent.
Okay. It can take over 48 hours to process and test the cyanobacteria, so Kevin shows me an earlier sample to demonstrate exactly how effective the isolated chemicals can be. Kevin has been testing them on cancer cells.
So what we have here are live cancer cells.
This is what living breast cancer cells look like under the microscope. Wow, it's amazing, isn't it? It's kind of shocking as well, isn't it, when you look at cancer cells, to think of the damage these guys do. And this is what cancer cells look like after they've been exposed to one of the chemicals from the cyanobacteria. In some cases, after only 2 days, the cancer cells have been completely killed off.
It's very nice to think that the work we do here in these labs can have a large effect on people all over the world.
Yeah, amazing. And how much more there is to potentially find. You know, I was really conscious when you're in the boat and you're diving, you're looking at such a tiny, tiny part of the ocean. You know, we are a blue planet.
Yeah.
These results are really impressive, but there's a long way to go from this sample to a new treatment for breast cancer. There's no doubt, though, that for medical science, the ocean is an expanding frontier, and this is just the tip of what might be out there.
Unlocking the secrets of our natural world has given us remarkable power. Now, we are taking it one step further, combining biology and engineering to take control, as never before.
My name is Richard Dawkins, and I'm an evolutionary biologist. I'm here in Oxford on the banks of the River Cherwell, doing what I've done for most of my life, which is marvel at the complexity of the living world and trying to understand it. I look at the river and I don't see the teeming millions of microorganisms, but I know they're there under the surface, reproducing away. I look at a tree and I see thousands of solar panels. Each leaf is a solar panel gathering sunlight to drive the whole metabolism of the tree. But what would it be like if we could harness these extraordinary natural processes and shape them to our own purpose? If we could get these teeming microorganisms to work for us at our bidding? That is the inspiration of a whole new area of science. It's called synthetic biology, and I think it offers exciting possibilities.
Some of the most groundbreaking work in synthetic biology is being done here in the United States, where millions of dollars are being invested in an attempt to create organisms that could generate billions in profits.
And one of the biggest challenges of synthetic biology is to harness natural processes to create something the world desperately needs more of: fuel.
It might sound like science fiction, but it's already happening here at the Joint Bioenergy Institute in San Francisco's Bay Area. They're using a bacterium that can cause food poisoning to make a very precious commodity instead.
Professor Jay Kiesling is behind a project working with E. coli. It's a bacterium that can naturally take in sugar and transform it into other chemicals. It's E. coli's transformative properties that Kiesling and his team recognized and wanted to harness.
We use E. coli as a model organism. It's an organism that we can quickly manipulate. We can make changes to its genetic makeup and test whether it can produce a particular biofuel.
The team took E. coli and safely altered it so it could feed off readily available plant cellulose, turn that into sugar, and then metabolize the sugar into that most valuable of products: diesel. It's a fantastically efficient process which creates pure diesel fuel that can be used in an ordinary car without further refining.
In this tube here, you can see the E. coli at the bottom, and just on the side of the tube, you can see the beginnings of the biodiesel. And this here is the biodiesel produced from E. coli. You can get bacteria which are widely available and tell it what to do to produce biodiesel or drugs or many kinds of medication. It's like a little factory right here in this tube.
Around 150 years ago, the development of synthetic chemistry revolutionized our ability to make paints, petrochemicals, and plastics. Now, synthetic biology looks set to produce a revolution in our ability to produce everything from biodiesel to new medicines. But this time, bacteria will do the work, and plants will provide the raw material. Kiesling predicts that in 2 to 3 decades from now, his new biodiesel, produced by modified E. coli fed on plant cellulose, will have replaced up to 30% of the world's transportation fuels.
Synthetic biology has incredible possibilities. Who could be against a cleaner environment or greater food production? Or better medicines produced inexpensively so that everyone has access to them, not just people in developed countries? This could be a world-changing technology.
We have many medicines to help us when we are ill. But in the future, perhaps our bodies can learn to heal themselves. We want to tell you about 2 great advances on this road to regeneration.
I'm Joy Reidenberg, and I'm an anatomist. I've come to Pittsburgh to find out about an astonishing development in human healing. The team here are isolating a substance called ECM, or extracellular matrix. It's a biological structure on which a body can build or rebuild itself, and it's found in all animals. This is a pig bladder that's being opened up, and once it's laid out, the cells are going to be scraped off of the surface. The idea here is to mechanically remove as many cells as possible, so the only thing left is the framework that the cells were sticking to. That is, the matrix itself. When we're in the womb, ECM is the scaffold on which our bodies build themselves. As very small children, it helps us heal ourselves if we're injured. But after that, it seems to stop working. By using the ECM structure from this pig's bladder, the scientists here hope to trick the human body into repairing itself. This extraordinary footage shows ECM at work, recruiting stem cells to build healthy tissue rather than scar tissue. It could transform the lives of patients with severe muscle injury. The work on muscle regeneration has already started, and here in San Antonio, Texas, is a man who's one of the first to receive this experimental treatment. Corporal Hernandez was a U.S. Marine serving in Iraq when a mortar blew out the muscle from his right thigh. Did they ever tell you that you would not walk again?
Yes.
How did they say that to you?
Pretty much just like that. You might not walk again. At first, it told me that I guess because the damage I had, that I should have been paralyzed, at least from the waist down, then that I should have had my legs amputated.
Then Hernandez heard about ECM and asked to have it inserted in his thigh.
ECM is this little round area you can see here. It's kind of rounded off by the scars.
Right.
Right there.
But I can see that this has more bulk to it than this area over here.
There's a little bubble there.
Oh yeah, you can see it bulging
right
when you work out. Yeah, I can see that.
After ECM, I can stand no problem. I can walk no problem. Even running and jogging a little bit now. And
Really? Yes. Running and jogging? And working out on equipment like this?
Yes.
Corporal Hernandez is one of the first ever patients to receive ECM for muscle regeneration. The success of his treatment shows the potential of this breakthrough in regenerative medicine.
I'm Dr. Roberta Bonder, and as an astronaut on board an international space mission, I was also the first neurologist in the world to fly.
Roger, roll, Endeavour.
Orbiting Earth was an extraordinary experience, and seeing our planet from such a privileged perspective made me appreciate our achievements as a species. But the discovery I wanted to tell you about excites me not because I was an astronaut, but because I'm a doctor. This is Dr. Hisham Sadek of the University of Texas. His specialty is regenerative cardiology. We're looking at an image of the heart of a 50-year-old man who's had a near-fatal heart attack. He survived it, but his heart will never function well again.
But you can see that that entire segment that has a scar is not moving. Let's say about 25% of the heart doesn't contribute to the pumping function of the heart anymore. And this is really the basis of heart failure, that we cannot return back the heart to what it was before injury.
But there are species that can spontaneously repair themselves. The salamander is capable of self-regenerating damaged heart tissue. But could biological science find a way to help humans do the same? That's what Dr. Sadek and his team are trying to do. And their starting point is an extraordinary discovery about a fellow mammal. These are the heart cells of a newly born mouse. They are outside the mouse's body, but astonishingly, they are continuing to beat. More than that, they are growing and replicating.
So when they're outside the body like this, they're still able to survive quite well.
Yes, and as you can see, they're beating by themselves. And what's really special about these cells is that they will divide once or twice, and this is the basis of why we started this experiment.
Hesham and his team wanted to know whether this phenomenon would occur inside a living mouse. The only way to find out was to perform open-heart surgery on a one-day-old mouse, remove a section of its heart, and see if it repaired itself. If it worked, it might help unlock the secrets of how to make a human heart regenerate. Using ice to place a mouse into a state of anesthetized suspended animation, this is a procedure that has never been filmed before.
What Ahmed is doing is he's going to dissect the muscles between the ribs and enter the chest cavity to access the heart.
Very delicate work.
Yes, he is a good surgeon. He exposed the heart, so the heart is outside the body.
That is incredible in itself.
And then he is using the specialized scissors to dissect the apex of the heart.
Ahmed is removing as much as 15% of the left ventricle.
And now he is closing the skin by skin glue, just like the skin glue is used for wounds in humans.
This is most amazing. I mean, the fact that you even let us see this operation reported is so impressive. I see it moving now. It's
Yeah.
a little arm up. That's pretty impressive.
Only minutes after surgery, the mouse is already recovering. But what happens to its now damaged heart has never been seen in mammals before.
So we found that within 3 weeks after cutting off the tip of the heart, that it all grew back normally, and the function was normal, and the heart went back to pumping blood normally, as if nothing had happened.
Although the mouse is only capable of regenerating its damaged heart tissue like this for the first 7 days of its life, this is a discovery that could lead to harnessing this regenerative power for humans.
What is the switch that turned on this process initially? How did you do that initially? How did the heart do that when it was younger? How do the heart cells divide when they're younger? What makes them stop dividing? And can we reawaken that again? Can we make the adult heart cells divide again and heal themselves again?
It may be years before Dr. Sadek's work reveals results we can use in humans, but it's no less important for that.
This research really opens up the possibility that we might be able to find a cure for cardiac disease without a scalpel in sight. That one day we may have the power to enable our bodies to heal themselves.
Next, how decoding the genetic secrets of a select few could help us all lead longer and healthier lives.
I'm a geneticist, so I'm interested in how our individual genetic codes can impact on every stage of our lives, even our final years.
Most research into human genes has focused on what's wrong with us. But what about what's right with us? What about the genes that might help us to have a long and healthy life? This is San Diego, where the over 75-year-olds are thick on the ground.
I'm here to meet Elsie Taylor. She's quite a special woman. So special, in fact, that science has taken a very keen interest in her.
Elsie has never suffered from any serious disease, and scientists would like to find out why. She's 91 and has an impressive fitness regime.
Oh, I exercise Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I dance on Thursday. Friday, I have yoga as a rule. I take Qigong and Tai Chi with Cherie.
Have you ever smoked? Or?
My grandmother thought it was sinful for a woman to smoke.
What about your diet?
I have been fortunate enough that I haven't had to worry about my weight. My weight hasn't changed really too much over the last 30 years.
82-year-old Natalie Nestet is in some ways very similar to Elsie. Both are sociable, and Natalie used to play a lot of hockey and tennis. But there, the similarities end.
boyfriend who smoked, and I thought it was very cool to smoke as well. My mother-in-law used to bribe me. She used to say, I'll give you so much money if you stop smoking. And I once stopped for about a month, and that was it. I was back again.
What about things like your diet and exercise? Do you eat particular foods?
I'm not a fussy eater, but I don't eat everything. I don't like fish. I do like hamburgers. I can go to McDonald's and have a hamburger, or I can have a hamburger in a smart restaurant. For breakfast, I will often have frozen waffles, and I'll just hope that I'll get through the day. I climb steps. I go down to the laundry, which is steps. I have 30 steps in my house, and it's frequent up and downs. And I feel that's sufficient exercise.
Elsie and Natalie have lived very different lives, but both of them are in a tiny minority because neither has suffered from any serious disease. So scientists want to know whether there is something that connects them.
Both women belong to an exclusive club dubbed the Welderly. Researchers here at Scripps Health are investigating whether there is something in their genetic code that sets them apart. They're comparing their gene sequences against those of people who've died from age-related diseases before the age of 80. They've identified one particular gene that might play a crucial role in determining lifespan. If they're right, this gene doesn't help you live longer, it makes you die sooner. This research has caught the attention of Andrew Dillon, a professor at Salk Institute for Biological Studies. He's an expert in aging.
Well, aging is a stress. It's every day, day after day, we're dealing with the environmental stresses that are going to be placed on our cells. Whether or not that's UV damage from the sun or it's going to be oxidative damage from our environment. There's damage that's happening to our cells and to our bodies throughout all of our life. And somehow when we're young, we're able to deal with that very well. We can protect our cells and protect the damages that are caused by that. But as you age, you start to accumulate more and more of this damage.
Andrew wants to put the gene identified by the Welderly Project to the test by seeing what happens if he disrupts its effect. He can't tweak the genes of humans, so he's trying it out on worms.
What we do is we make the same gene disruption in worms and flies and mice and ask whether or not it will also increase the health span of those animals and make them appear like these Welderly population of humans.
It's still early days for the research on these Welderly worms, but in previous studies, Andrew has been able to disrupt other age-related genes to create a breed of superworms that live far longer than their peers. He's confident that we are narrowing in on the key genes that affect lifespan.
Now that we know the different genes that are modulating the aging process, is that those are targets to make drugs against. At the end of the day, you know, we're not doing the research to make a person that's going to live to be 120 live to be 250. That's not our goal. The whole goal here is to have a healthy lifespan and die of natural causes rather than suffer through these age-related diseases.
It comes as no surprise to Elsie that the secret of her long life might lie in her genes.
My father was 89. He was very active, and his brothers all lived to be late 80s. The oldest was 96 when he died. On my father's side, definitely longevity was there, so that helps, I'm sure. And my brother, in spite of problems that he's had in his health, he is 91. He'll be 92 in August, so it's continuing. I hope to live a few years longer.
But what's significant to the rest of us is that if researchers like Andrew Dillon can identify these genes and turn them on and off, then we might all enjoy a healthy old age, like Elsie's.
You've been doing exciting travelling and kayaking and dancing, and what's next for Elsie?
Wonderful to have a young man in my life at this stage and that likes to go places and do things. So we danced together every Thursday, and we had this wonderful trip to Spokane and the Tetons and Yellowstone. Oh, it's just great.
Until recently, little was known about the processes by which we grow old. What's fascinating about this research is that it seems possible that we may be able to alter those processes and unlock the secrets of a longer and healthier life.
I think it would be a selfish thing to say that I'd like to live forever, and I'm having a good time. So why shouldn't I go on having a good time? But the fact of the matter is that the world is overpopulated as it is. Here I am in my 80s. I've been living far beyond my natural span, I suspect. And that means that the population of the world has grown and grown. And what about young people coming on? No, I think human lifespan has already been extended, and I don't think we ought to ask to live forever.
I would definitely like to live forever, because my dream is to one day travel to the stars. But to travel from our star to the next door neighbour star would take 76,000 years using current technology. So to see the whole of the universe, I'd really need to live forever.
I personally would love to live forever. I don't think it's a good idea for all humans to live forever, because then we'd never have anybody new and we'd never have any new ideas on Earth. We always need to have an influx of new stuff. But I personally am terrified of death. Not dying, but being gone. So I'd love to stick around and see what's happening in the future.
The more we discover about DNA, the more complex it becomes. Now scientists are beginning to understand that we can affect the health of future generations in ways that none of us ever imagined.
Let's suppose that I'd smoked heavily throughout my lifetime, or indeed eaten far too much. Then that would be my responsibility, because my genes might well behave in a certain way which would cause me to have diseases. The received wisdom has always been that that genetic message could not be passed on. But there's some new evidence that what we do to our genes can affect not only our children, but our children's children.
We first started to unlock some of the secrets of our DNA nearly 60 years ago, but recently science has begun to focus on an additional layer that sits above our genes, a layer of multiple switches that may be turned on and off as a result of our lifestyle.
This field of study is called epigenetics, and I think that epigenetics and the study of the way genes function will be one of the most significant advances in healthcare in the next decade.
This is Professor Marcus Pembry. He's one of the key proponents of what is still a controversial theory. As a pediatric geneticist, he's been fascinated for years by the idea that a parent could pass on their life experience epigenetically to their children. He began to look for evidence with the help of a unique database at Bristol University. Beginning in 1990, 14,000 pregnant women and their partners agreed to take part in a study which would follow the development of their children. This study is called Children of the 90s, and for the last 2 decades, it's been collecting a detailed store of biological samples and lifestyle information from the families. Marcus focused on the pre-adolescent experiences of the study fathers. The theory was that as boys at the age of around 9 or 10 began developing sperm, what they experienced in life at that stage might then be passed on to the next generation. But what life experiences could they look at?
The only thing that we could come up with was when the study father started smoking.
I mean the age he started smoking?
The age he started smoking. So it was the onset of smoking before puberty, before about the age of 11.
So boys in Bristol really smoking before the age of puberty?
Well, indeed they were. Because we're a big study, we had over 5,000 who smoked, fathers who had smoked, but 166 reported that they were smoking before the age of 11.
And what did smoking cause?
What it did for the future sons, but not the daughters, they had increased obesity at the age of 9, and indeed that's been shown to go right through puberty.
This result may seem extraordinary, But the correlation between early smoking fathers and obese sons held true even when they took all the other social factors into account. Marcus is convinced that this is an inherited epigenetic effect, and the phenomenon isn't just smoking related. A remarkable study in Sweden had previously shown that boys who overate at the pre-adolescent stage fathered sons whose health was affected. But most significantly, they had male grandchildren who were much more likely to die early.
So the inheritance is not just the DNA, but these additional layer of information that's placed on the DNA, so-called epigenetics.
But if an epigenetic effect can pass down through the male line, what about the female line? Scientists started to study the experiences of women during pregnancy and wondered if stress could cause an epigenetic effect. There was just one problem.
Obviously, you can't subject a pregnant woman to massive stress in order to find out what's happening to her babies. But occasionally, scientists can really benefit from a massive natural disaster. And in 1998, a huge ice storm hit eastern Canada.
Electricity pylons buckled under the severity of the freezing rain and the weight of the ice. For over a month, thousands of families had to endure sub-zero temperatures without power. Marie-Claude Leblanc was 7 months pregnant with her son Samuel when the storm struck.
We lived each day as a survival exercise. It wasn't exactly a camping trip, it really was survival. Even in a brick-built house, the cold and the damp seeped in, and we felt it to be minus 35, minus 40. We couldn't let the fire go out.
There's no doubt that living through the ice storm would have been a stressful experience for anyone, but especially so for a pregnant woman concerned about her unborn baby. Yet could the stress that the women experienced have a long-term effect on the health of their children? Psychologist Dr. Suzanne King experienced the ice storm firsthand and wondered exactly that.
My family was without power for 7 days, which was not all that long compared to people in the region that we're studying. But a few days after the ice storm, I went to give blood and found that my blood pressure was abnormally high. I realized that this was probably due to stress. And it also occurred to me that there were probably hundreds, if not thousands, of pregnant women out there also being stressed by the ice storm.
Dr. King and colleagues at McGill University recruited more than 150 women who were pregnant during the storm and is studying their children.
We're looking really at development in the child in terms of their cognitive development, their IQ and language and so on, their behavioral development in terms of depression, anxiety, aggressiveness, also their physical development. So in very general terms, what it looks like is that for women who had the highest levels of stress from the ice storm, the worse the outcome in the child.
This suggests that the extreme hardship experienced by the pregnant women during the ice storm has resulted in some of their children having a lower IQ and greater emotional difficulties. In the womb, we develop hundreds of thousands of brain cells a day, and perhaps exposure to high levels of stress hormones has an epigenetic effect. Now we have to wait for the ice storm mothers to have grandchildren to see if this epigenetic effect is passed on to the next generation.
In the past, people thought the slate was wiped clean between the generation. Only DNA mattered. Now we know it's not destiny. There is other things. What you choose to do, the lifestyle you choose to have, for good or bad, not only sets an example to your offspring and grandchildren, but actually biologically can affect the way their genes work and the way they develop and their health.
You know, we humans are really arrogant. We think with science that we control our environment, but actually our environment controls us. And unless we learn that message, we, our children and our children's children will always have a battle for our health.
In this series we have given you a glimpse into our future. We've shown you the discoveries and inventions which we think matter most. Perhaps the most astonishing, the power of genetics. How our understanding of the genome is creating a revolution in human health. Like the cancer treatment that has saved the life of Tina Miranda.
We couldn't be more pleased about how well you're doing.
Thank you.
You're feeling well.
Very
Your
well.
cancer has been shrinking away. It's wonderful to see that.
Yes.
A new understanding which is also ensuring a future for endangered animals.
A vet is now taking a blood sample from this lovely old creature. It will preserve genetic information that could last for hundreds, if not thousands, of years.
And has led to the new science of optogenetics, which might reveal at last the inner workings of our brains.
In there were once thoughts, memories, dreams, perceptions of colour, sounds, melodies, language. There are perhaps 100 billion nerve cells, neurons, in there, and maybe 200 trillion connections between them.
These discoveries have inspired us.
I think the most interesting aspect of all of the biological sciences is actually how the brain thinks, and I think that we're just beginning now for the first time to understand the physiology of human emotion, human love, human anger, and so on. Really fascinating.
I think if I was starting my career all over again, I might be very tempted to work in biology, because with our knowledge of genetics now, the world really seems to be our oyster.
I think the most significant discovery in the last decade or so has been the recognition that genetics is not just a matter of chromosomes.
The breakthroughs that are just on the verge of becoming reality is understanding our own genetic makeup enough to be able to predict what diseases we might get and be able to sort of beat the disease to the punch and stop that disease from happening.
But our future is not just about flesh and blood. We revealed a new machine age where lasers build the world around us. Cars drive themselves.
We've just gone driverless.
Absolutely, yeah.
Show me your hands.
And there is public transport to dream of.
It's all a bit James Bond.
It's a time where there are rockets for hire. An era where robots learn like us.
Do you want me to play alone?
Operate to save our lives. And even help the paralyzed to walk again.
I'm massively optimistic about the future. You only have to see what's coming out of scientific research institutes around the world to think the future's going to be a fabulous place to live.
But science is not just about the practical. It allows us to understand the world. It gives meaning to life.
Everybody knows science is useful, and so they run away with the idea that useful is all that science is. Of course science is useful, it's very useful, but you have to remember that science is almost an aesthetic pursuit as well. It's inspirational.
How we know that the Earth is not flat but round. How we know that the sun doesn't go round the Earth but the Earth goes round the sun. These fundamental understandings are actually crucial to understanding our place in the universe.
Trying to unlock and understand the secrets of nature and the universe is a part of being curious and a part of being human. And we know from the past that this kind of fundamental science has the potential to change the world.
I've lived with the prospect of death for many years, but I'm in no hurry to die. I want to see the future and the wonders it will bring.
Magic is going on inside there.
See more from Stephen Hawking in his documentary Masters of the Universe, available on 4OD at channel4.com. Next Monday at 8, the story of Linda Carty, the British woman on death row. Next tonight, the gripping story of one of the most radical minds of the 20th century. Alan Turing was Britain's greatest codebreaker.